Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Gray Area. We hope that you had a wonderful day. I'll start with prayer. God, please open my mind to new ideas, possibilities, and perspectives. Give me the ability to discern the truth. Help me to connect with others despite our differences. Help me to not lean on my own understanding. Lord, we invite you into this conversation. Have your way. I'll go right into the Gray Area introduction. Have you ever thought to yourself, what is God's perspective on my situation? Does it align with my perspective? Do I see things the way God wants me to? Introducing the Gray Area. The Gray Area is designed to challenge your thinking. We don't always realize it, but the way we were raised, the things our parents taught us, school, society, and life experiences all play a part in how we think and perceive things. Perception is everything. Shanae and Tashura are both mothers, wives, daughters, friends, ordinary women, yet our goal and number one desire is to please God, integrate His ways and His perspective into our lives. This isn't always easy, especially when we have been programmed to think a certain way. However, God has purposed us to challenge ourselves and others on their belief systems. Does it align with God? We often try to see things black and white, wrong and right, good and bad, but this thing called grace and love doesn't allow us to see things so simple. Everyday conversations, discussions, and situations through the lens of God is our prayer. We invite you to listen to our conversation and chime in. Perspective matters. Before I go into setting the table, I just wanted to tell everyone that your perspective is super important, and in order to make us all better, we want to hear different perspectives. So if you would like to make a comment or ask a question or just give your perspective, please press *6, and we'll see you in the queue, and we'll let you in. So today we're continuing our series on time and how important our time is. And today we wanted to talk about how important the word no is, and are we effective in setting boundaries with pretty much saying yes to everything? I think it's almost impossible for us to do everything, and say yes to everything. So I think the conversation today is going to go along the lines of when to say no and how important it is to say no to things that you know that you can't accomplish, or even saying no to those things that maybe you can accomplish, but it would take you away from doing some other more productive things, and just getting things done, being able to complete tasks. So the question today that we're posing for the Gray Area is saying no setting boundaries? And, pretty much how does that affect our time? So I guess I'll start off with my response, and I think you have to say no. And, I think no is essential for setting boundaries. And it's just super important. I know we want to do everything, and I know that, we've just been taught over, from we were little kids to, pretty much please people and, try to get as much done as we possibly can. And sometimes, saying no is not easy. You feel that you need to be there for a friend or you need to help somebody out. And, it's just mean to say no. Somebody asks you to do something. And I think it's just super, super important that, that when to draw the line. And believe it or not, I think sometimes, not sometimes, I think all the time people respect the no. They know where, and people will push and push and push until they get the no, because I think some people, they respect you, but then others will continue to push. But I don't think it's always a people thing. I think sometimes, we contend with ourselves. For me personally, today was an extremely long day, And I think this is just a really important conversation to have, especially since starting a new school year. It's just a lot of, and just coming out of the summer and just preparing for the new school year, I think it's super important for us to kind of set boundaries and know what the things are that we would like to accomplish this year. I think that's so important in just, our daily success and our daily goals that we set for ourselves. So just being able to say no to things that aren't a part of, what the goal is that you set for yourself, I think it's super, super, super important. I don't know if Shanae's here and she has any comments that she wants to make in response to the question for tonight. Okay, I think Shanae's having a little difficulty with her phone, but so I think it's just super important for us to be able to draw the line in the sand. I know for me, I have several different endeavors this year that I'd like to get accomplished. One is this podcast that we're all a part of. Just making sure that it's better moving forward. I have 3 children that just started school, and I think it's super important that, their success in school is also a priority on my list. I'm super active in my church, and, the success of the ministry that I'm a part of is super important to me, as well as the PTA, as well as other personal goals that I set for myself. So I think, with many of us, on a daily basis, how do we know what things to say no to? Because I think even in those things that I just mentioned, that it's easy to kind of get bombarded and not accomplish, take on more and not be able to accomplish some of the things that we want to. I think I think last time we spoke, I mentioned that I like to work off of a to-do list. And this year, I want to step it up a notch. And instead of just saying that I'm going to do a to-do list, have my to-do list on a calendar. So there's a time that is set around my things that I need to accomplish. So, it's a specific date and a specific time frame that's set around. So it's not just a to-do list. Everything is being timed, because what I it's crazy because when I was younger, time didn't seem to move fast enough. And now that I'm older, it seems like I don't have enough of it, And, I think it was an article by Mark Cuban that was kind of talking about that we all have the same 1,440 minutes a day. And we can all accomplish a lot if we set out to do it from the very beginning. So I think that's super important. Shanae, are you there?
Yes. So there were a few things that you mentioned that I don't know if I necessarily have the same experience. I find that people often give me a hard time when I say no. And I don't think that people respect my no, which is what makes it challenging to say no. So, if 10 people invite you to a birthday party or anniversary and they really want you to be there, and then you have a million things like you mentioned, like you have the PTA, you have the kids starting school, it's like you want to almost like please people, so it makes it very difficult. Then you end up trying to do everything, and then your time is being split, but then are you really being effective? Because now one area is lacking. And I find that that's like my biggest struggle, is trying to do everything and not wanting to say no, with the fear of maybe, disappointing people, that I find myself ineffective many times in my own personal life. So for me, I think, to answer the question, I think no is so important when we think of boundaries. but how realistic are we? How realistic is it? Some people are very disciplined with their no, and some people struggle with it. And so I think finding a balance. But there was something that you really said that I think is important, and I think we talked a lot about it last week, which was prioritizing. I think that learning to prioritize, what comes first and what do you value most? For some people it's their children, for some people it's their family, for some people it's their job. I think once you put that into perspective, I think that then you can start to identify what you can say no to as you start to set boundaries around yourself.
I agree. I want to just go back to the part where you were saying that some people don't respect, your no, and I've experienced that too. Where you would say, no, I can't come to this event, and instead of the response of, okay, I understand, it's more of a why, and then you have to have your reasoning has to be good enough for the other person, or at least they feel that. So you have to give a good enough reason to the other person that they feel that your no is justified. When it's just that's wrong. You know what I mean? Like I've experienced that. I feel like my no. I always say I think my no sometimes has too many frills on it. My no is like too nice and too soft, right, that people will be like, well, why? And then now you have to, defend your no. And why should it be that way? And I think it's important that we, say no and we, stick behind it, because I think the no has to be.
I think it's important to respect other people's time, and I'm learning that. There are a few things that I think I invited you to, and you said, no, I can't come. And it doesn't bother me because I think that we as people have to learn to respect other people's time. Even if you do love that person, time is so precious. I think that's something that we talked about a lot last week. Time is precious. It's something that you can't get back. So we need to make good use of our time. And I think that, I know we haven't got to tonight's challenge, but as I'm talking and I'm saying this even to myself, learning to respect other people's time. Some people just can't come to everything that I do, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that they love me any less. I do agree that, yes, people who love you should make sacrifices, but sometimes you have no idea what that other person is experiencing, to make it out to something that you invited them to, So I think that that's something that I have to learn to do, and I am learning. I don't find myself getting as upset when people say I can't come to, my kid's birthday party, or I can't come to this function that you're doing. I'm learning that it's okay. People have lives. I know that with me, I have a lot that's happening, a lot going on. So, I myself would like for people to give me that same consideration.
Yeah, I was just thinking, just when you were talking, and, I'm just thinking, sometimes I invite my friends to things and they can't make it, and it doesn't bother me. But I think, like I said, from the other side, too, I think when you start realizing, my no, accepting my no so it works both ways. So that's what I'm trying to explain. So it works both ways. So now, when I'm saying no, there's a reason for me saying no, right, and setting boundaries. But you're going to also realize it when you start to practice that word no. When you realize, if I say yes to this, then I'm not going to be able to complete my kids' homework. Then I'm not going to be able to, you see what I'm saying? I'm not going to be able to spend time with my husband. I haven't seen him all week. If I say yes to this, it's a huge sacrifice that and sometimes you have to weigh it out, especially since you have all those things on your plate. So I'm just saying, it goes, both ways. So if it's that person, so I think when you are able to stand on your no or say no, you understand when someone else gives you the no, because it's you're giving, right. You have those same mindsets, because it's all right, well, she probably said no because she's probably dealing with some of the same things that I'm struggling with that she had to do, Right. And now what I've noticed too with you you will be like, when are you, like, let's come up with a time together where it kind of works for both of us, that you can be there because I really want you to be there, rather than set a time and then have the expectation that someone else is going to kind of work around it, because it's hard that way. It's hard that way. So I agree. I think this year is important. Like, with all the endeavors and all the things that we all want to accomplish, I think it's important that, we say no to the things that we have to say no to, because the sacrifice is too great, and it's going to compromise what we need to accomplish. What do you think?
And you have to be okay with that too, because the other piece is the guilt that you feel, I'm learning now. I don't feel as guilty when I say no. Like, a really close friend of mine had a birthday dinner that I found out last minute, like I think the night before. Mm-hmm. And I felt guilty because in my head, just to be transparent, I'm like, I don't want her to think that, I'm, being mean or something, but I really am, like, overwhelmed. Yeah. And I didn't go. And, I felt, for a little bit, I felt extremely guilty, but then eventually I was like, you know what, it's okay. It's okay, because if I continue to do this, I don't think I'll be an effective individual overall.
Yes.
Think about, like, when you pull yourself in different directions. Like, are you, like, the same wholesome person that you should be, or are you mentally drained? Like, I just think about the tax that it takes on me mentally, physically, emotionally, when I'm spreading myself all over the place. And I don't want to be that way. I don't think that I'm a good friend. I don't think I'm a good mother. I don't think I'm a good, sister that way. So I think that, we have to consider our overall being when we're trying to do all these things, like how it impacts. Like, what is the impact, when you try to spread yourself so thin?
It's so true. It's true, because, you said, we spoke, just for anybody who didn't hear it last week, but Shanae mentioned last week that, in some cases, like, you struggled with, like, accomplishing, like, you set out to do something, and sometimes it doesn't get done. Things don't always get done. But I think that happens sometimes when we spread ourselves really, 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 really thin. We're putting a lot of things in the schedule, and it kind of prohibits us from accomplishing what we set out to do.
I agree. Yeah. You should interfere.
Yeah, we have someone in the queue.
Okay, let's let them in.
All right, let's hear what they have to say. Hi, caller.
Hi, guys. So growing up, I used to always hear my mom say, I'm number one. And I never understood it until I became older, and until I became a wife, a mother, a professional, and have so many different things pulling from me at the same time, and trying my best to fulfill other people's needs, and not understanding that my happiness is number one. And sometimes you will do everything you can to please a friend or your kids, and when you get there, you realize, oh, my God, this really wasn't even worth it. So what I realize is now, when I think about all the things I have to do, I set my priorities on what's going to make me happy and allow me to continue to be a good friend, a good mother, a good wife, a good employee. It's just the balance and creating boundaries and just knowing my limits and knowing what I can and what I can't do. Because if I'm not here, it wouldn't matter anyway.
That's a really good point.
That's such a good point.
I like what the caller talked about in terms of balance. I think that everything we do has to be in good balance. You mentioned all of the things that you're a part of, and the biggest thing is, how can you balance all of that? Where one isn't tipping more than the other. Well, except for family. Just that, family for some people means a lot, but just generally speaking, like, finding, like, true balance.
Yeah, life is like gravity. Everybody pulls. Everything pulls. And you just got to know when you got to put the force on and say, okay, no, I cannot. I cannot make your birthday party. I cannot make your dinner. I cannot come to your event because spending time with my children or my husband or going to a PTA meeting is more important at this moment. Not saying you're not important, but I have made it to so many other events that you have had. One is not going to kill us.
That's good.
Thank you guys for hearing me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was I love that analogy that life is like gravity because it's so true. Everybody's pulling. Everything is pulling. And, that thing about, her mom just calling herself number one, I mean, it's true. You have to kind of put yourself first because if you don't, no one else is going to put you first. You have to know what's important and how to keep yourself in that place of sanity so that you could accomplish everything that you set out to.
That's really good.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I know this is kind of like off topic, but I really wanted to share, and I'll share it again next week if we talk about time again, but one thing that has significantly changed my life, and I think I'm telling you, I'm not even kidding, I think it has, I know we don't have more than the 1,440 minutes in every day, but I think this legitimately has improved my life, and I feel like it has added minutes for some reason, or the minutes are longer, is every morning I make it a ritual, and I've been doing it for the last, I would say, maybe 2 years. I make it a ritual to get up at least a half an hour before everyone else, and I spend time in prayer, reading the Word, talking to God, 30 minutes. And in that 30 minutes, I would say within the last couple of years, my life has completely changed. I mean, radically. And I have intensified my productivity, my creativity. I am just working at a higher level with everything that I do, everything. And I think it has to do with the first 30 minutes of my day. And I think everyone could just apply that, that first 30 minutes before you check into anyone else or even, I mean, I think this is just good for overall mental health, and just centering ourselves and getting back to what our source is saying. I think it's not even like important. I think it's a mandate in order for us to be able to function at the level that we should. And it has changed me completely. I mean, completely. I ventured to write a book, and we have the podcast, and we have, it's just completely changed things. And I would just encourage everyone on the line just to, because I know it's hard. I know the first thing you do, sometimes you want to hit snooze, and we get up running, or, we devote our first minute to somebody else or something else, or social media or emails. But I think it's important that we spent that first 30 minutes. I mean, you don't have to do 30. I do 30, but that first time of waking up to spend the time with God in His Word, talking to Him, hearing from Him, just being thankful, just that first initial time, I think that will change. And I just want to share that because I think it has totally changed my life.
That sounds awesome. I think with that, and kind of what we talked a little bit about last week, as well as it comes with discipline and commitment. Like, one of the questions we asked is what prevents us from executing and, prevent us from following through. And I think it's, like we talked about last week, is commitment to seeing something through. So you mentioned that in discipline, like what you're doing, it takes a discipline. This is something that you do on a daily basis, and you do it for 30 minutes no matter what happens. I think what we're talking about when it comes to time, because we're trying to do everything, we're like, okay, I'm going to, sit in my quiet time for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to do this for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to do that for 5 minutes, you know? Well, what you're doing is you're maximizing your time, and I think that that's so important, especially when you're thinking of keeping yourself centered.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that that's huge. I think that we all need to make time to keep ourselves centered.
Yes, I think so. And I think that will just be my challenge. That's going to be my challenge for I think more than the week, but I think just based on, I mean, I'm a living testimony to it, and you know, it is, I think, the best thing I've ever done. It's so vital. It's completely changed how I see things. It just, to me, it just took me a little, you know, it took me up a notch, you know. So I would just encourage everybody to try it, you know. I'm not saying it has to be, like I said, a half hour, but even that first 5 minutes just to spend time saying thank you, you know, just to, you know, tell God how much you appreciate what he did for you yesterday and how today is going to be so good. I know some people do like the mantras and some people meditate, but I think just overall spending time, like quiet time, and just getting your mind right for the day is just super, super, super important.
So, I agree. I think that I'm definitely going to try it. I think for me, one of the things that I want to encourage, as I was talking about respecting people's time, just giving consideration for someone else the next time they tell you no, you know, and not get upset. I think that it's a dual process. What you talked about is like a two-way process. Like if you really understood it, then you wouldn't get upset or offended. And I think that if we all consider how precious and important time is for ourselves and others, we would be a little bit more understanding and lenient and receptive when people may not be able to come out to things or whatever it is that you may ask or expectation of. So that's my challenge. Just, you know, taking another, you know, giving a second thought to another individual.
Yeah, that sounds really, really good. And I'm practicing that, and I'll continue to definitely practice. Oh, one thing before everyone leaves, this might like my last 5 seconds of, you know, what I also, because I'm a snoozer in the morning, and initially it was super hard, and sometimes it's still super hard for me to get up, and now since the school year's starting, you know, to get up that extra 30 minutes in the morning, I think it would be a good idea just for those who struggle with it to set your alarm clock and not leave it on your side table. Well, you know, I set my phone, so, you know, my alarm clock on my phone, but I would set my alarm clock on my phone and leave it maybe on my dresser, which I have to actually get out of bed to actually go and turn it off. So once you're out of bed, it'll prompt you to now stay up. You know, you have to think again, like, you know, it gives you a second thought. So I just wanted to give that, like, tip because that's something that I'm going to be using just to make sure that it actually is done, because it's so necessary for me to spend time with God in the morning, every morning, in order to keep my you know, my vibe.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So in closing, I mean, that's that. So.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that you got something from it as we continue our series on time and just, you know, considering how important time is in our day-to-day. If you have questions or comments, you can always email us at thegreyareaconversation@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Gray Area Conversation. Thank you again for tuning in. We look forward to you being a part of our conversation next week. Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great night.